Hello, everyone, and welcome back in. It's me, Omar Bam, aka Crypto, always getting together the most important cryptocurrency news that you need to be aware of to make sure you make the right decisions for yourself and we can just enjoy this beautiful adventure into the future. Today was an interesting day in the road to adventure because we knew in crypto that we were going to get laughed at. And we knew eventually we were also going to be fought after we went through the ignored phase. And it looks like one of the biggest shots against crypto is happening today with the sanctions that are preventing American citizens from accessing Tornado Cash. So we're going to be diving into what those implications are for the space and what many in the field are saying and some other news. So welcome, everyone. I thank you so much for returning and for supporting the show. I really appreciate it. So let's go ahead and start off, as we often do, with a look at the prices. What's up, Validator, 10 pence, Pothead, Scott, Renee? What's going on, guys? So we have Bitcoin up 2.3% on the day. We have Ethereum up 3.4% on the day. Ethereum was over $1,800 at one point. It just wants to continue to push higher. It's given some back now, but it's surprising that it hasn't given that much back considering some of the news affecting the biggest mixing service on Ethereum that we're going to get into right now. When we're looking at the top winners for the day, we have Celsius Network. Can't believe it, but it's up 17%. Flow is up 14.5%, and the Graph is up 14.3%. As far as the biggest losers, we have Decred on here, Tencent. So yeah, you have Tencent down 7.3%, Decred down 5.8%, and Lido DAO down 4.6%. So in regards to other news, before we dive into the main subject of Tornado Cash, that I think you should absolutely be informed of and aware of. It looks like we have more and more of these protocols and platforms that are currently on Ethereum version 1.0 announcing that they're not going to be supporting a proof of work fork if and when Ethereum moves to Ethereum 2.0, expected around September 17 through September 22. I'm hearing that this is the week we're going to be getting a harder date as to when the activation for the mainnet is going to be happening for Ethereum 2.0 and the merge. But here we are with Chainlink, who posted this on their documentation. Chainlink is the biggest Oracle service for Ethereum. You can use it to ping information, and yeah, it's been really the main mover in that regard. The Ethereum merge is an upcoming. Okay, let me just skip to the second part since we already know what the merge is for the most part. The Chainlink protocol and its services will remain operational on the Ethereum blockchain during and after the merge to the proof of stake consensus layer. Users should be aware that forked versions of the Ethereum blockchain, including proof of work forks, will not be supported by the Chainlink protocol. This is aligned with both the Ethereum Foundation's and broader Ethereum community's decision, achieved via social consensus, to upgrade the Ethereum blockchain to proof of stake consensus. I'm hearing even if Vitalik is coming out trying to downplay any sort of proof of work fork because there could be serious issues with replay attacks that could result in loss of funds if you try to move your Ethereum the old proof of work tokens, we could call them the old, but the proof of work tokens, you might end up losing your proof of stake tokens. So be very careful as we go ahead and enter this activation period. Yeah, you want to be very cautious with that. Also, Argent, Ethereum wallet. Good morning. We received a few questions on potential proof of work forks after the merge. We're extremely excited for the merge. Not least, it's 99% energy savings, and we have no plans to support any forks. So it does seem like the DeFi ecosystem that might have existed with proof of work is about to fall apart, since you have Chainlink, for example, integral to so many different applications, and you have USDC and some of these stable coins and their reserves integral, and they're not going to be supported by their respective teams, such as Circle for USDC. So it's going to be an interesting clusterfuck to watch play out with you guys. Yeah, thank you guys. Those of you guys who have hit the like button, it helps us out a big way. Thank you for that, and I encourage you to do so if you haven't yet. Smash that like. But another bit of news that you should be aware of is HODLNOT. I'm not sure if any of you have any funds parked on HODLNOT, but it looks like there is now a freezing taking place for all services for HODLNOT. This is a Singapore-based platform that would be similar to Celsius or Voyager, one of these platforms that was promising yields. And if unfortunately you didn't heed the message that these services were going down and could result in you having your funds frozen as well if you weren't on Celsius, for example, well, it looks like that's now come to funds at HODLNOT. To all users, we regret to inform that we will be halting withdrawals, token swaps, and deposits with immediate effect. We have reached this difficult decision due to recent market conditions. We understand that this is disappointing news and understand its impact on you. We would like to reassure you that this difficult decision was taken for us to focus on stabilizing our liquidity. That's the excuse that they're using, most players in the game, and preserving assets while we work to find the best way to protect our users' long-term interest. We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience that this has caused you. You know, it's funny to me that they are saying also that they're going to continue to give out rewards. Yes, you will still be able to earn interest on your funds. Continue to pay out interest earned according to the rates every Monday until further notice. Kind of reminds me of Celsius. They kept that game going of promising until what, like 2 weeks ago, or maybe was it even last week? They had continually said that you were still earning interest on funds that you might never see, or you'll see a very small portion of. Just kind of an insult. But it looks like HODLNOT is following the tried and true playbook of some of these other platforms. What's interesting is that apparently they hadn't been involved at all with Three Arrows Capital, HODLNOT, but still they were affected by some of the contagion. And it's interesting, as others are pointing out, that even with the prices recently going up, you still have platforms like HODLNOT. There was another one yesterday, I can't remember the name, but these platforms are still freezing withdrawals. So I still encourage you to be careful. There are still some major players out there that allow for you to get rewards. I mean, I'm thinking about like Gemini, BlockFi. Not to say that those are going to be going down, but the warning signs have been out there. And if you ignore them, then, I mean, you really only have yourself to blame at this point. So let's go ahead and dive into things. So as I started my foray into crypto today, I saw this tweet, which was apparently deleted. Secretary Antony Blinken said, "We will continue to aggressively pursue actions against currency mixers laundering virtual currency for criminals. Today, U.S. Treasury sanctioned virtual currency mixer Tornado Cash, which is a U.S. sanctioned DPRK state-sponsored hacking group used by the DPRK to launder money." That makes no sense. Basically saying that it was completely backed by DPRK. That was deleted and corrected. So this is what eventually it was corrected to. "We'll continue to aggressively pursue actions against currency mixers laundering virtual currency for criminals. Today, the U.S. Treasury sanctioned virtual currency mixer Tornado Cash, which has been used to launder money for a U.S. sanctioned DPRK state-sponsored cyber hacking group." So, this is the official announcement from the U.S. Department of the Treasury. Today, they have sanctioned, again, Tornado Cash, which has been used to launder more than $7 billion, they say, worth of virtual currency since its creation in 2019. This includes over $455 million stolen by the Lazarus Group, a Democratic People's Republic of Korea state-sponsored hacking group that was sanctioned by the U.S. in 2019 in the largest known virtual currency heist today. Today, Treasury is sanctioning Tornado Cash, virtual currency mixture that launders the proceeds of cybercrimes, including those committed against victims in the United States. Despite public assurances otherwise, Tornado Cash has repeatedly failed to impose effective controls designed to stop it from laundering funds from malicious cyber actors on a regular basis and without basic measures to address its risks. Treasury will continue to aggressively pursue actions against mixers that launder virtual currencies for criminals and those who assisted them. So yes, Tornado Cash, if you're not aware, I remember when it first came out, we were talking about it on the show. It's a virtual currency mixture that operates on the Ethereum blockchain and indiscriminately facilitates anonymous transactions. Ooh, scary. By obfuscating their origin, destination, and counterparties with no attempt to determine their origin. Bad. Tornado receives a variety of transactions and mixes them together before transmitting their individual recipients. What's up, Evan? Yeah, he deleted a few hours later. What was it? People were saying he's possibly doing libel. He's just making stuff up in the fantasy world. That's what I had read when he had tweeted out the first time. Tornado receives a variety of transactions and mixes them together before transmitting them to their individual recipients. While the purported purpose is to increase privacy, mixers like Tornado are commonly used by illicit actors to launder funds, especially those stolen during significant heists. So this is quite ridiculous. Right now, well, we're going to get into it in just a moment. Let me just finish up right here. But as of the result of today's action, all property and interests in property of the entity above Tornado Cash that is in the United States or in the possession or control of U.S. persons is blocked and must be reported to OFAC. So this is basically forcing all sorts of businesses that transact with the Ethereum network to be reporting information to OFAC if they are on this list. There were 45 different addresses that have been sanctioned and added to this list by the Treasury. That includes donation addresses for Gitcoin to Tornado Cash. That includes liquidity pool addresses. It includes it's not any one individual, but all sorts of things associated with Tornado Cash at this time. And now funds that were locked up in Tornado Cash are pretty much locked up, because if you touch those funds, you are probably being watched by the greater level of surveillance that is now taking place. And you probably have exchanges, right? So you think you might be safe moving to an exchange, but exchanges have to also, again, just monitor these addresses, and this might result if you try to withdraw funds that were associated with Tornado Cash and move them, for example, to an exchange, that you could have your account frozen pending some sort of manual approval if that ever happens, and you'll probably be reported to OFAC, which could result in prison time. So this is creating all sorts of messes. Like, if you want to attack somebody, maybe you don't like somebody in crypto, then move funds from Tornado Cash. Maybe you had some funds there already, and move them to somebody else's address that you dislike, and a great way to implicate them. But yeah, I think Coin Center, I'm going to go ahead and go through this because they did the greatest write-up that explains so many of the edge cases around this and how this might apply to you and the cryptocurrency space overall. So let's take a look. Coin Center does the majority of the good work in lobbying on behalf of our industry, the cryptocurrency industry, for more favorable regulations. So U.S. Treasury sanction of privacy tools places sweeping restrictions on all Americans. Sanctioned Tornado Cash smart contract is a tool, not a person, which is the primary target of these kinds of sanctions. Tornado Cash, the website and associated Ethereum addresses, has been added to the OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control SDN list, the list of specially designated nationals with whom Americans and American businesses are not allowed to transact. What does this mean in practice? It means no American can send or receive money to or from those addresses without violating sanctions laws. What is the OFAC SDN list typically meant to do? In general, it is a tool to identify persons involved in terrorism, enemy states, or other state-sanctioned activities, and ensure that these individuals cannot get the benefit of the U.S. financial system. Think like sanctioning North Korea or sanctioning Cuba. How is adding Tornado.cash to the SDN list different from past OFAC actions. A smart contract is which is what Tornado Cash is, and which is why you have this talk now of that Tornado Cash is the new Pirate Bay. So Pirate Bay was an old torrent, well, it still exists, torrent listing website where you try to take down one front end for it and others spring up constantly. So the same kind of thing might be happening with Tornado Cash. Anyway, because it's a smart contract and you can stop the front end website, people can still interact with it. A smart contract is a robot, not a person. It is software that resides on the Ethereum blockchain. If a contract is credibly decentralized and the original authors of the contract could be hit by a bus and the service would continue to work. It's not as easy as just creating some sort of sanction and having a decentralized piece of software just shut down, or even have enough consensus to be able to implode some sort of smart contract, if that were even possible with many of these. As such, today's action does not seem so much a sanction against a person or entity with agency. It appears instead to be the sanctioning of a tool that is neutral in character and that can be put to good or bad uses like any other technology. It is not any specific bad actor who is being sanctioned, but instead it is all Americans who may wish to use this automated tool in order to protect their own privacy while transacting online, who are having their liberty curtailed without the benefit of any due process. So, for example, I saw Hacker News. There was a discussion about this, and they were discussing how Vitalik Buterin himself had recently done 4 transactions with Tornado Cash. Why would Vitalik Buterin be trying to do some illicit financing, right? Quite unlikely, but it would be quite likely that with everyone trying to pry at him and what addresses are his, he might want a little bit more privacy and might use Tornado Cash for that specific purpose, right? Even when Bitcoin addresses have been added to the SDN list in the past, the rationale for those additions is that they are under the control of persons who are engaged in sanctioned activities, and the address is simply another alias for the sanctioned person. If it was the Treasury Department's intent to sanction some group of persons who actively maintain or promote Tornado Cash, that would be one thing. This SDN entry, however, merely identifies a URL, tornado.cash, which, by the way, is down already, the front end for tornado.cash, and even accessing it through GitHub is now unavailable, and a series of Ethereum smart contracts. Sanctioning a tool that is not an alias of any person meriting sanction is substantially different from typical usage of the SDN list. It is a ban on a technology and not a sanction against a person. What's up, Eric? Citizens United said money is speech. Absolutely. Plus, a smart contract is speech. He said, I hope the Supreme Court takes a look at this. Yeah, I'm hearing that this could lead to some sort of bigger battle here. It's funny how crypto is doing more for free speech than most other movements that any other kind of grassroots movement that I've seen spring up in the internet. Even worse, because of the nature of blockchain transactions, an American who has sent money through the tornado.cash address is not even able to reject the transaction, and yet may be at the moment technically in violation of OFAC rules. We are still looking at the legal and constitutional ramifications. As a first pass, it's worth noting that under Buckley versus Valeo and Citizens United versus FEC, limitations on spending money raise First Amendment concerns, just like Eric is saying here, because spending is necessary to support and communicate political speech. In Sorrell versus IMS Health Inc., the court went so far as to invalidate a state law that made the buying and selling of prescription drug information for marketing purposes illegal on First Amendment grounds. In this case, the sanction laws are being used to create a limitation on spending money, not merely with some person who has been found guilty of a crime or even suspected of terrorism. This is a limit on any American who wishes to use her own money and a freely available software tool to maintain her own privacy, including for otherwise entirely legal and personal reasons. Moreover, while limitations on speech are often constitutional when applied after the fact, example, defamatory speech can be penalized, prior restraints on speech are typically unconstitutional. Keep your mouth shut. OFAC sanctions, unlike a defamation claim, operate as a regime of strict liability, meaning that no prosecutor or judge needs to make any public showing of fact to add a name to sanctions persons list, and transactions with anyone on that list are banned. A prior restraint, irrespective of the specific details of any particular transaction or the motivations of the transacting person. The constitutionality of that regime, as it is typically applied, has not, to our knowledge, been challenged on First Amendment or due process grounds. This particular usage of OFAC raises heightened constitutional concerns because it is, again, not a ban on one on one non-US person's ability to use a financial system. It is instead a ban on effectively every American's ability to use a particular open source software tool. So some more input here from JPM that I found on Reddit. You're going to put sanctions on a block of code? Do they realize someone can just create another mixer and everyone will use that? And third parties don't run Tornado Cash. It's a smart contract. And another thing, if I have legit funds in Tornado Cash, couldn't I just send small amounts of USDC or Ether to people I don't like? Because now those funds are tainted, right? Since they were touched or had touched Tornado Cash. And boom, now you're under the investigation or fined or banned from using established crypto exchanges. Does this mean all miners and stakers are now illegal if a block is linked to a Tornado Cash transaction? Whatever you say, US Treasury. So yes, Circle, the company that runs and operates USDC stablecoin, a lot of which was locked up at Tornado Cash, is now permanently locked up because Circle went ahead and froze those USDC because they can blacklist any address that is holding USDC. From being able to move those funds, as well as 149 USDC donated to the project. So from my understanding, the ETH is fine, right? You can still take your ETH out of Tornado Cash. The issue is now you might be doing something illicit because now it's illegal to interact with that open source software. So if you have funds there, you're kind of stuck. And imagine how much that would suck. Some more thoughts here from Pranhalio that I found on ETH Finance subreddit. As others have noted below, Circle has now blacklisted the USDC pools on Tornado. Some thoughts. Seems to be the first time a pool has been blacklisted instead of individual addresses. One interesting asterisk is they can't really do anything about the Tornado pools that currently exist on Layer 2 or any other USDC on Layer 2 for that matter, other than block the entire Layer 2 deposit contract, that bridge. One really hopes they don't go that far. I wonder if this could cause a push to have more native USDC on L2s. For example, like Avalanche has both USDC.E, bridge from Ethereum, and native USDC minted directly from Circle. This new block list is a pretty long list of addresses, and because of how USDC implements blocking, this will make the cost of transacting with USDC on Ethereum go up, because it means that now more addresses need to be checked if they are on the blacklist for USDC. And so when you try to do some sort of operation on Ethereum involving USDC, that's going to mean more steps and more gas being charged for those operations. Yeah, those addresses were blacklisted by USDC, those 45 addresses. You can see that on this automated Twitter account, USDC blacklist, which has showed those addresses if you want to check those out for yourself. Also, a co-founder of Tornado Cash, Roman Semenov, had his GitHub account suspended. GitHub was purchased by Microsoft recently. I think it was like 2 years ago. We talked about that on the show as well when that took place, and just how concerning it is, because corporations will oftentimes try to protect themselves, and that could be what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the developers, even if you had just put some sort of line change the documentation of Tornado Cash, just change one little sentence on there, you could have had your GitHub account suspended now because of this. Is writing an open source code illegal now? It very well might seem to be. It looks like it, which is ridiculous. Look at this. It's not ridiculous. I mean, we're seeing these kinds of assaults now happen in crypto, and there's a reason that crypto doesn't stay quiet, and they do get loud, and we need to bring up potential cases that could be happening in the future to prevent against them. But here's Tyler Reynolds saying, my prediction is that within 18 months, the Treasury will require USDC and all other stablecoins to freeze all balances until the addresses keep track of customer information, fill out know your customer information that could include phone numbers, addresses, and everything else. DeFi will get absolutely wrecked as automated market makers can no longer function and money markets get immediately under collateralized. I think it is a huge problem that you have something that can be blacklisted and censored like USDC that is integral to more and more of these applications that seems more and more like an Achilles heel. And that is, I think, the main focus here, which is why you're hearing for calling a bigger calling today for adoption of other stable coins such as DAI, although it has a sizable amount of USDC that is now backing DAI as a stable, as for collateral for that stable coin, which to me is ridiculous because the main reason I held DAI was to protect myself from potential problems with USDC, but whatever. Or even RAI is another one being called for. Right. I thought this was great. What about this? If this gets some sort of traction by carlbeak.eth, I would love for a collective to send dust, so small amounts of crypto of ETH, via Tornado to as many accounts as possible on Ethereum. Let's become ungovernable. They can't arrest everybody. Can they do it? But yeah, just like Eric Voorhees and others are accurately noting, a huge amount of the money laundering that happens in this world is through the banks. So here's Juthica. Money laundering remains most effective through USD mixing service HSBC. Uh, and I mean, there's so many different ways to still obfuscate and hide the transactions you're doing, whether you're using Monero and going into Monero before withdrawing to other places, or trying to use Z addresses on Zcash. Popular one is just going to an exchange, depositing there, and the exchange might pool your funds just like Tornado with other funds that aren't necessarily linked to you if you haven't done KYC on that exchange. And when you withdraw back out, your funds technically have a clean slate there. Of course, again, be careful if you're drawing from Tornado Cash and you have funds there to an exchange and then to yourself. That's still gonna probably raise some red flags. But I like Sicarius's kind of funny Twitter posts here. Thankfully, I've never used Tornado Cash to launder money. I used KuCoin exchange for my laundering like a normal person. Good on you, Sicarius. But I thought that, there is a two-sided argument here. And you have folks who, for some reason, don't seem to care as much about privacy, and you have those that are out there getting quite loud about privacy right now. So I thought these two back-to-back Reddit posts kind of sum this up quite well, both sides of this argument, and I do try to be objective wherever possible. So let's take a look at Phi Marhal first, who said, there's no point to blockchain if the option for privacy isn't there. It becomes super fragile instead of anti-fragile. In the event the Ethereum community gave up that fight, I dumped most of my assets and move on to flip the latest centralized venture capital Ponzi's. For at this point, the price we pay for decentralization would be an utter waste if the network can be coerced into compliance regardless. Powerful words there. Thankfully, I'm confident plenty of important voices have no intention of selling out. See Noah Zinsmeister of Uniswap, who immediately threw some ETH into Tornado after the news. Indeed, now is the time to deposit on Aztec. It's a more private layer 2 being built on Ethereum to use Tornado on L2s. This is literally one of these situations where they can't jail all of us. It's on each of us to choose the future we want to live in. Is the goal just to make some fiat money, or do we also want to live free in a better world? To stress, it doesn't need to be one or the other. Nobody has to YOLO their entire stack into privacy protocols, but throwing sub 1% of your assets in there makes a negligible dent in your upside should oppressive authoritarians prevail, whereas it could have a sizable collective effect in creating a better future. On the flip side of this coin, we have the comment by the only hodler in Cow, who said, I, for one, as a citizen of an incredibly corrupt country, would welcome the public by default money system with open arms. My country is a top 20 economy, top 10 in population, top tourist destination, etc. By all metrics, our standard of living should be amazing. Yet 50% of our population lives in absolute poverty. The government steals money by the handful. Police is underpaid, which leads to them working for the criminals. Public education sucks, which leads to people to more poverty and a lot of times a criminal life. Don't even get me started on healthcare. We could probably say for a fact that my country's criminals are the most powerful organized crime syndicates in the world since the late 90s. They have incredible influence over the government. I wouldn't be surprised if they were pulling the strings behind everything. People live in fear on not coming back home after a working shift because kidnapping, murder, and violent armed robberies happen all the time. Every day, we live in fear of our houses and vehicles being stolen. We live in fear of traveling through countryside roads, as you don't know when you could enter a drug lord territory. We live in a war zone, literally. As bad as it sounds, outlawing private money could solve a lot of these issues. All private money, even cash. Okay. One of the main aspects that made me get into the crypto utopia is the idea that one day, after all the shady MFs, we'll have to adopt a public, by default, money system. Was that really the goal in the beginning, though? And finally, after decades, my beautiful people from my beautiful country will be able to escape from this freaking nightmare. Privacy is important. By no means am I advocating for bigger government or more restrictions. I'm aware that supporting the elimination of some freedoms opens up the door to more oppression. But when it comes to money, I fully support it being completely public. So I will finish with our quote of the day here that's kind of related to that. I think plays into more of my perspective into how things kind of are going. Privacy is rarely lost in one fell swoop. It is usually eroded over time, little bits dissolving almost imperceptibly until we finally begin to notice how much is gone, by Daniel J. Solov. And I am super interested to hear your opinions and your comments if you weren't able to give them here during the live chat. Let me know what you guys think about this whole situation and how it could impact cryptocurrency into the future. It's kind of troublesome. And obviously, you don't want to out yourself if you were using Tornado Cash. Now it's a scary thing to say we're using it. Yesterday, it was fine to use Tornado Cash. Today, it's not. And it looks like there can't be any sort of retroactive thing. So they can't go after you, apparently, if you used Tornado Cash in the past, which wasn't collecting information. Although publicly signed information linked to Ethereum addresses might be culpable, I suppose. But you should be fine if you used it in the past. However, if you had used it and had some ETH in there right now or USDC, you're kind of screwed, which sucks just because of the fact sanction that came out today without any sort of leeway on either side. But yeah, it reminds me of, what was it that Edward Snowden had said? It's not caring about privacy is like not caring about free speech because it's not caring about privacy is because you have nothing to hide is like not caring about free speech because you have nothing to say. Is that the quote is something like that, but you kind of get where I'm getting at. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the show and took away today's most important topic. I think it was a big one, and I invite you to hit the like, subscribe, share the video. Huge help when you guys do that on Twitter, Reddit, anywhere, as we get the show going again to try to bring you important topics, I think, related to crypto and your own journey here. Thank you for joining mine. Take care, everyone. Much love and stay cryptic. See you tomorrow. Peace.